How do people from around the world think about Noah's Ark?
We're here on deck 3 of the Ark Encounter at the Arks Around the World exhibit. My name is Tim Chaffey. I'm the content manager for the Attractions Design Department, and I'm here today with
Felicia Goebel. I'm the project designer for the Arks from Around the World exhibit.
That means she's the one responsible for designing this beautiful exhibit, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. You may not have seen it before, but it is located near the Flood Legends exhibit on deck 3 of the Ark. Now, Flood Legends is a bit distinct from this. The purpose of that exhibit is to show that throughout the centuries, the account of the flood of Noah's day has been handed down generation after generation after generation through these various ancient cultures. And what happens as a result, you get these distortions and distinctions between them, but you also have some similarities which give us some powerful evidence of the historicity of the biblical account of the flood. Now in this exhibit, what we have are the ways that people in modern times have depicted the Ark. It shows the fame of the biblical account largely through missionary activity. People have carried the gospel and translated the Bible into different languages, and people have been trying to depict Noah's Ark in these various cultures, and they've done it in some rather unique ways, which is really on display here, Felicia.
Yes, it definitely is. You can see it in the different regions, just like the representation of just the architecture of the culture or the craftsmanship that are part of like the cultures for the region.
Yeah, so why don't you give us a few examples of how the cultural impact or the cultural style impacts the way that they depict the Ark?
So one example that comes to mind is there is a hand-carved gourd from Peru. It's got the entire biblical account of the flood carved onto the side. So it's a pretty
So then just mass manufacture a bunch of wooden pieces. They took a gourd and actually hand-carved
it. Yeah, so it's a really cool piece.
There was another one that we talked about before that from Germany, right, where there was a law where kids were not allowed to play with toys on Sundays, right?
Yes.
And so the way some people got around that was to make these arks as like Sunday school teaching tools.
Yeah.
And of course, with all the animals, suddenly kids can
play on
Sundays.
Sundays,
Play with it, but because it's a Bible lesson, they're able to get around that. Now, all of these amazing arks were donated by a guy named Doug Baker, and we're really grateful for that donation because we were able to build this beautiful exhibit here on deck 3. And Felicia, you're the designer, so a lot of work went into this, and our team learned a pretty good lesson. When you design something really beautiful and complicated, that means somebody has to
build it. Yeah, so it's a lot easier to design it out. Another thing to actually build it. Bending wood is quite a feat that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, so one thing you want to make sure you do when you check this out, there is so much intricate design on the panels all the way throughout. You've got this curved, like a wave wall? What do we call that thing? And so they had to figure out how to do a lot of very complicated things, and it turned out just spectacular. So
yeah, they did an incredible job.
Well, you did a great job, and the team did a great job. I'm always amazed at what our team does.
One of the things I noticed as I was putting this exhibit together is that the arks themselves remind me of a little bit another exhibit that we have on deck 2 of the Ark.
That's right, it's called the Fairy Tale Ark exhibit. Now in this exhibit, we are cautioning people about the way that they design the Ark, because so many times people will make it, well, like you see in all these books and everything, it looks like a little child's toy, a little bathtub toy or something, and that tends to trivialize the biblical account of the Ark and the flood. And we want people to understand that this is a real event in history, and so we urge people to depict it as realistic as possible. We know that a lot of people doing these things had good intentions behind it, but even good intentions can have bad consequences if people grow up thinking this is just a fairy tale rather than a real event. And so that was kind of one of the goals of building the entire Ark Encounter, was to show people this was real history and that it could have been done just like the Bible describes, and it was done just as the Bible describes. But there is a distinction between the Fairy Tale Ark exhibit and the Arks Around the World exhibit.
Yes.
So even though we caution people about designing the Ark or depicting the Ark as this, what we call a little bathtub or fairy tale Ark, we know that a lot of people were doing that with really good intentions. They want to help young people learn more about the Bible and learn about Noah's Ark and the flood. And when we look at the arks from the Arks Around the World exhibit, we can learn something about the people who made these. And Felicia, what would that be?
Yes, I mean, everyone was using their God-given talents to try to honor the Lord in whichever medium they had, whether that's carving on a gourd or working with wood, metal. They want to show just the truth of God's word.
That's right, and there are so many different styles that are depicted here, so many different materials that people are making those things out of. And you know, we want to encourage people, no matter what your skill, no matter what your background, because mine clearly not artistic in any way. I couldn't do any of these things. But whatever your background is and the talents that God has given you, develop those and use those for His honor and His glory. Felicia, like you did when designing this exhibit, and like our fabrication team did to bring it to life, and it just did a great job with it. So if you want to find out more about this exhibit, you got to come to the Ark Encounter Deck 3 and check it out. Felicia, great job on this exhibit, and to the whole fabrication team, they made it just a beautiful exhibit. And if you want to find out more about flood legends, you can click right here and find out more about that.